friends, it's Allie, and today we are talking about how to get booked as a second shooter to a wedding photographer. Second shooting is a really great way to learn more about wedding days. Whether you're newer to photography and you are wanting to learn more about your camera and how it interacts on a wedding day and you're wanting to get into the wedding industry, or maybe you're coming from family photos to wanting to do more wedding photos, second shooting is a really great opportunity to add to your portfolio and also learn a lot. Second shooters are there to get secondary images on a wedding day. Second shooters are usually contracted jobs when you are working with different wedding photographers in your area or maybe outside of your area. It's usually just a rate fee and people don't usually expect you to edit the images. You are just there to grab secondary shots for the primary photographer who books you. The key to getting booked as a second shooter is knowing what to look for. You're going to want to find someone who matches your overall style and approach to photography. Are you a lot more candid, laid back, and reserved? Or are you a lot more outgoing, bubbly, energetic, directional? All of these things are going to be things that you want to factor into who you're looking to second shoot for, because you will probably be a better match for someone that you think that you align with rather than just finding random photographers to work for. I really appreciate this because I tend to be a little bit more directive in giving my couples direction, but also giving them time to be themselves and be very candid. And I'm always looking for people to match my personality on a wedding day. And a great way to do that is to just do your research on each photographer. If you find a photographer that you like, read their bios, pay attention to their Instagrams, find different ways that they really put themselves out there and see if you feel like you'd be a good fit based off of what you're seeing. I think that introductions are so powerful as a second shooter. I get DMs, messages all the time with people asking to work with me to second shoot for me, and they don't really give me a whole lot. They just say, I'm looking to add to my portfolio, I'd love to shadow you sometime, or, I'm kind of wanting to get more into weddings and I'd love to work with you. But it doesn't give me a whole lot of, okay, well, how experienced are you? So here's a couple of different ways that I think you can make a really powerful introduction. Creating a resume. I know that we create resumes all the time for jobs that we want to get, and honestly, in my opinion, this shouldn't be treated any differently. This is a job that you want to get contracted for. This is a person that you want to work with. If you treat this really professionally, there's a very good chance that they're going to treat you professionally back. Another introduction could be having a gallery or a portfolio set that you can send just of your second shooter images. I usually get a lot of people sending me photos of families that they photographed or styled shoots that they've done. I'd really like to see a lot of the photos if you've worked as a second shooter before that you've taken on a wedding day. If you have not worked as a second shooter and you're wanting to dive into this world, there will be a section of this video that talks about how to get booked for your first time as a second shooter. So let's talk about what could be in a second shooter resume. You should have your gear listed out. There are some photographers that are going to want to keep a lot of the similar brands in their style. So for example, if you shoot primarily on Canon or Nikon, you may want your second shooter to have a Canon or Nikon body. For some people, it doesn't matter. For some people, it really does matter. If you are someone who rents equipment for a wedding day, let them know what you usually rent. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Another thing that should be on your second shooter resume is some references. If you have second shot for somebody before, ask them to write you either a recommendation or put down their name as a reference. Sometimes I will hire somebody just based off of who they've worked with before, because I know that if they're working with somebody that I've worked with before and I really like, or as a photographer friend of mine, I'm a lot more likely to hire that person. Another thing that I think is important to list out is your strengths. If you do not like photographing details or you do not like having to give direction, but you are just absolutely a star at candids, be honest about that. For someone like me, I can really operate differently on a wedding day based off of what I know your strengths are. But it would be a shame to get to the end of the wedding day and not know that details are your favorite part of a wedding day and doing all of the styled lay flat things. If I didn't know that, I'd be really disappointed, because then I could have totally let you run free while I go photograph a lot of the more directional things. If you're not sure what your strengths are just yet, you can leave that out. Just make sure that you add to it to let the photographer know, hey, here's where you can really trust me, here's where you can really rely on me, and then here maybe are some areas that I'm not so crazy about. If anything, I think it's going to be appreciated that you let somebody know up front that this is what you prefer to be doing on a wedding day. There is nothing more frustrating than hiring a second shooter and realizing that they haven't done a lot of detail photos before, or they haven't really engaged with clients before, and then you're having to do a lot of makeup work because you put them on some responsibilities that you thought that they were capable of handling. It's just kind of hard to navigate. Another great way to getting booked as a second shooter is networking. Now, I'm not sure where you're watching from, which In the comments below, let me know where you're watching from. But the Nashville photography community is a pretty tight-knit group. We all enjoy networking, we all enjoy getting along with each other. We are very much community-based over competition. It's a really special community. It's really fun to be a part of. For a lot of places, there are local photographer groups that you can be in. This is a great way to get notifications about when somebody needs a second shooter. It's also a great way to get to know when people are doing meetups. Meetups are so important. I am 75%, if not more, likely to hire somebody that I have met before in person and I've talked to, rather than just having somebody who randomly found me on some social media platform. If you have a photographer that you're communicating with, a really great way to secure that booking is to ask questions. Asking questions lets your photographer know that you are interested, engaged, and that you care about the wedding day. Some good questions to ask would be, how involved will I be on a wedding day? Do you expect me to direct people and to pose people, or is this going to be strictly more candid? Another question to ask is, how often will I be shooting on my own? Some photographers will pay you a second shooter rate and expect a lot more out of you. That might be something that you want to know going into it, especially if the photographer is not communicating those standards and expectations on the front end. Asking a questions can be so important to making sure that a wedding day runs smoothly. Another good question to ask is it okay for me to shoot dual card slot on a wedding day so that I can keep these images for my portfolio? Every photographer has a different policy on whether or not you're allowed to keep the images, edit the images. Everyone runs their business differently in that way. Now, what happens if you've never second shot a wedding, but this is something that you really want to get into and it's something that you really want to try to do? It's kind of a similar process to trying to become a second shooter in any other way. Reach out to some photographers. Ask if you can shadow and if you can assist. At this point, you are going to know how this photographer likes to run a wedding day. When you get to a place when you're comfortable with a wedding day, you can ask, hey, I've been assisting you, helping out on wedding days. Is it okay if I potentially third shoot for you at some point, just to be able to show you how I would potentially second shoot a wedding? It is something where you are going to have to put a lot of effort in on the front end, because there are very few photographers that are going to see somebody who's never second shot a wedding, that has no proof that they would know how to, operate on a wedding day. Really important to add to that portfolio so that you can share it with other photographers. But from there, after you've shot for one photographer, then you have a reference and now you have a portfolio, and then you can really start getting into learning about how different photographers operate on a wedding day, and also figuring out, if you are wanting to start your own business, how you would like to operate a wedding day. Second shooting is a really great opportunity to build to your portfolio, to gain a lot of experience, and to work with some really new cool photographers. What's not to love about all that? And thankfully for you, if you want to build your own second shooter resume, I have created a Canva template that you can easily edit. It is at the link in my website and the details below. It's called the Second Shooter Resume. You can open it up in Canva and create your own resume and add in all your information, and then you are good to go. If you liked this video and now you know how to get booked as a wedding photographer second shooter, now let's talk about how to be a great photographer second shooter. That is going to be another video coming up here soon on my channel, and I'm so excited to share it with you. In the comments below, let me know where you're watching from, and also let me know if you've second shot a wedding before. Thank you all for watching so much. I appreciate your time, and I will see you next time.